How we doing?
Good. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
How are you again? Nice to see you again.
Tired?
Hey, you know what? We have a question.
Sure.
Do these guys work all day here?
It's gonna be great.
So do they have full-time jobs and then they come back?
Already taken care of. Yeah.
I did it for.
How long have you been playing?
It's long. Sorry about that.
Good. Which job do you like better?
I love
Until
it.
there's another rule, but you know,
Love it.
that's,
Absolutely
we
love
got
it.
hours for that. Hi, Marty.
There's gonna be a race or there's gonna be a few of them.
Bite your tongues. Oh, litigation. Oh, litigation.
Good evening and welcome to the November 3rd, 2022 Northampton County Council meeting. Mr. Lott, will you please lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Zembo, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Giovanni.
Here.
Mr. Gofredo.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Lott.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Here.
All present.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes of October 20th, 2022 and the October 12th, 2022 budget hearings. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion passes. Next, we have a proclamation. Is anybody here from the Epilepsy Foundation? Mr. Heckman, would you present, or would you at least read this for us, please? Yeah,
All right, proclamation, Epilepsy Awareness Month. Whereas epilepsy is a neurological condition sometimes referred to as a seizure disorder and is characterized by recurring seizures, and more than 209,000 Pennsylvanians live with epilepsy or a seizure disorder. And whereas 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy in their lifetime, and up to 50,000 Americans die each year from seizures and related causes, including sudden, unexplained death in epilepsy. And whereas the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania, leads the fight to stop seizures, find a cure, and overcome the challenges created by epilepsy, and the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania, is dedicated to ensuring that all people with seizures and epilepsy are able to participate in all life's experiences. And whereas state funding in Pennsylvania currently supports Epilepsy Foundation programs that provide technical assistance, training, and support to Pennsylvania's school nurses, teachers, and students on seizure recognition and first aid, and supports Epilepsy Foundation programs that provide patient education, public awareness, and information and referral services for children and their families living with seizures in our state. And whereas the Epilepsy Foundation Eastern Pennsylvania is celebrating 50 years of service and dedication to Pennsylvania communities, and the prevention and control of epilepsy can be achieved through the continued community education and awareness programs. And whereas the Commonwealth has historically supported the creation and expansion of epilepsy support services and awareness programs through federal and state appropriations, and the epilepsy community recognizes November as Epilepsy Awareness Month to promote epilepsy awareness and education throughout the world. Therefore, be it resolved that Northampton County designates November as Epilepsy Awareness Month.
thank you very much. Next, we have courtesy of the floor. I only have one person who signed in, 5-minute limit, and I have Marianne Morales.
Good evening. I'm back. I'm not as nervous as I was last time. The reason that I'm back is, again, I'm concerned about the voters. The email I resent to all of you about the voter roll issue, about the 6,909 voters that seem to still be registered in our county, but when compared to the national change of address, in other words, the voter rolls haven't been purged yet. And so what I did was I filed another right to know. My first one was rejected and my second one was as well. So I don't know if I'm not using the right words because I'm not an attorney. I'm a marketing person. So I just wanted to come and make that part of the voter record, okay? Or of the public record, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. That's it. Have a good evening, and I want to thank you guys for your service to the county as well.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else here from the public that wishes to address council? Mr. McClure, do you have a report?
Good evening, Commissioners of the County Council. My report begins with the Phillies' first pitch is at 8:03 p.m., and that's on Fox, and the Eagles kick off at 8:15, and I guess the NFL has a deal with Amazon Prime to the Thursday night games, so how do I watch this?
Go on Amazon Prime.
You're kidding me. Okay, well, anyway, they kick off at 8:15. That concludes that part of my report. I heard lots of discussion last night about the Partnership Health Center, sort of toward the end of an unrelated budget hearing, and I wanted to share with you, I know you have received this letter as well, but this is from the United Steelworkers of America dated October 27th, 2020. And again, this is relative to the Partnership Health Center, that health center that's been presented to you on 2 separate occasions by Integrity Healthcare, whereby our employees would have their own health center. It would be just for them and their employees, and there'd be no co-pays. Dear County Executive and County Council, my name is Jerry Green, President of the United Steelworkers for the last 22 years, and I represent the RN nurses that work at Graysdale. I'm writing you to show my support, and I'm asking for your support to the proposed county health center for working employees, family, and retirees from Northampton County. I'm a former employee of Bethlehem Steel, and during my employment, the employees of Bethlehem Steel were afforded the opportunity to participate in an executive healthcare center, which provided quality care and quality services. In addition, provided a great cost savings. I personally used the facility faithfully up until then closing of the center. I applaud County Executive McClure and his team for pursuing an effort to reduce healthcare costs without sacrificing quality care. I hear from our members often on how we can reduce healthcare costs. The county should take a good look at this opportunity. Again, I put my full support to this endeavor. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Sincerely, Jerry Green, President, United Steelworkers, Local 2599. Mark is here with Integrity tonight. He wanted to come to be available to answer any questions because of the questions that boiled up last night at the meeting. But I want to understand that Mr. Forrester has reached out individually to council members to answer any questions that you may have about the proposed Partnership Health Center. And I certainly would strongly advocate that you take him up on the opportunity to meet with him and discuss the opportunity to do that. Last night, I heard, I think it was President Hefner ask the question, are there any other entities that could provide this service? And certainly there are other entities. And we have been contacted by Lehigh Valley Hospital, and we have been contacted by President Hefner's employer, St. Luke's, to have conversations and meetings about potential provision of services. Now, we do know that they would not provide the types of services that integrity has proposed to provide. But I wanted to let you know that that was out there. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions? Mr. Gafredo?
Mr. McClure, on a separate topic, I believe Mr. Cusick asked at the last county council meeting if we are still enforcing our vaccine mandate for COVID-19. In light of the recent New York Supreme Court ruling that upheld a challenge to New York City vaccine mandate for public sector employees, ruling that the vaccine was not stopping transmission or preventing infection, that they would be able to hire back employees who were either fired or left because of the vaccine mandate. Knowing that that is the news, is there any chance that Northampton County is going to be relaxing their requirements?
I think that when the Center for Disease Control, in coordination with the World Health Organization, declares the pandemic to be over, I think then it would be an appropriate time to do that. With respect to court rulings, the Supreme Court has rejected, the Supreme Court of the United States of America has rejected similar arguments from local jurisdictions all over the country. So I would be guided by the law coming out of the Supreme Court of the United States.
So if that
Which is these types of mandates are lawful. Thanks, bud.
Oh yeah, there's no question as to the lawfulness currently. My question to you as our county executive, what is the justification now, knowing that many people here are vaccinated, have gotten COVID with the vaccine, and there is no evidence, no science at all to prove that we are no longer transmitting or getting COVID with the vaccine, knowing that we are in a hiring, man, this microphone's terrible, a hiring, we have a lot of staffing shortage issues. This seems like a easy way to encourage potentially 30% of the population from being able to sign up and apply for a job here in Northampton County.
Well, I'll give you a slice of that. For example, the prison corrections officers class, we don't lose anybody because of it. We don't lose anybody from our classes because of it. One or two, maybe, a class.
Okay.
So it's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
It's not, our experience is it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I had a separate, another different issue, and I raised this earlier before the meeting. The election that's upcoming, there's been a couple of rulings now as to whether or not we count undated mail-in ballots, timely reporting. Are we adequately staffed? If you or Mr. Jertinger would like to address some of those issues.
So what are the questions again?
Our staffing, are we completely ready to go?
Yes.
Will reporting be done in a timely manner? What time do you anticipate having results?
Our goal is to be done by midnight. And I think it's important, and I think the media needs to do a better job at this, with unofficial results. Unofficial. On, the day of the election.
So that would include everything except provisional ballots?
And some judge of elections forgets to bring their stick back from, one of the 154 fully staffed precincts that we'll have rolling that day. That's awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other one, it's highly anticipated that undated ballots will perhaps trigger a lawsuit, as it has previously. What steps are we taking to deal with that?
We're going to follow the Supreme Court's order.
Which is?
We're not going to count those ballots that are undated or improperly dated, and they will be segregated with the understanding that if there are court cases that you were ruminating about earlier that indicate those votes should count, we'll be able to put them back in the count.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. McClure, with the follow-up to Mr. Cusick's question with the unsigned, undated ballots, there were counties that had practice of reaching out to those individuals ahead of the election day, informing them that they needed to come in and put corrections in place. Are there any of those kind of practices in place in Northampton County?
Yes, if you are voting through the Shore system, you will get an email. If you're not, we'll send you a letter.
saying, we received your ballot, but there's an
Yep.
issue, and
Come in and
they
come in
can
and
come in up until 8 PM
on election day.
election day to
Yep.
have that correction.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I have that right. Yep.
I will say, I'm going on vacation next week, so I voted by mail, and it worked very well. I was notified by email that you received my ballot, so it was a good experience.
Did you date it? Did you date it, John?
Did you put it in the secrecy envelope?
I just want to say, because this, and you know, Mr. McClure, you've been in county government, this comes out, this has become more of an issue, the whole voting thing, not, just in general. And I think it's important for those of us who in the county, who, as Mr. Cusick likes to always remind me, it's a core function, voting. We're responsible, but the state sets the rules. And the state, if people are upset with how things are, go talk to the state legislators. I mean, they've put this together. They've gone back and forth on what they want, what they don't want, and then the courts get involved. And we're just sort of the recipient of all their actions. And I mean, I'm sure you would agree at least with that.
I do.
Thank you.
Agree with you often, if that's what you were getting at.
No, I think, though, it's important. We had some questions. I think our system, we do the best we can. Look, I was someone who was very critical of some others when we first got the new voting system, as you know. And you know, we had an issue, but that was, what, 3 years ago? And it really got straightened out. I'm old enough to say that the idea that somehow there was a golden age of voting where, if you study history, that it was pure and simple. And I mean, I was alive still when guys were taking guys into bars and then taking them to the voting place. So it's a perception issue, a lot of it. And I hope we get past it someday, because that makes me more nervous than actually who's even in office is this concern about our voting. And I guess I would go back to my state legislators, help us at the local level.
That's why it's.
I don't want to see people getting angry. There are election officials, and we've probably lost a few, who over time, it used to be very simple. People would do it, a lot of retirees. I've had people come up to me, and I know who have been, and they'd say, I'm just not going to do it anymore, because, you know, I don't want somebody coming to my door or yelling at me, or I had somebody yell. And I just think it's unfortunate. I mean, you know, we can disagree, but I don't know. Poor election workers, most of them, they're just there trying to be a good citizen, and
So
whatever their designation.
all we can do, right,
Yeah.
is handle our own business.
Yeah.
And put on a fair, legal, and accurate election here. And that's what we strive to do. And you know, council deserves a great deal of credit for, you know, throughout my tenure as county executive, being right there with the funding necessary to make sure that we had all the resources we needed. And I also think, as you point out, not only is it important for us to perform well, it's important for us to push back on any false narratives that we do not. And we have been fortunate thus far not to really have suffered that kind of scrutiny. That particular kind.
Yes, sir, Mr. Myers.
Suffered other kind.
Along with the election issue, I saw today and tonight on CNN that Berks County is going to try to put armed, uniformed people. Please assure us that Northampton County is not doing this.
So I'm not familiar with the report. I do know the law is that you can't have anybody other than a constable in a uniform with a gun, what if it's 100 feet? 100 feet from a polling place.
Sheriff's Department in Berks County is going to have their officers around the voting stations for integrity purposes.
Well, you know, that may be the case, but my general understanding is, without specifically addressing Berks County, is that wouldn't be lawful.
And we most certainly, we talked about this before, and that was shot down, if I'm not mistaken, last year. So we don't have any guys there unless something happens, correct?
Yeah, you know, in America, we don't have pre-crime. You know, we're free. No, this is a free country. It's where we have freedom, and you know, we hope people behave well.
I thank you for that. there's enough intimidation going on in the world nowadays.
I do. It slipped when we were talking earlier. It slipped my mind. I do have one other piece for my report, Madam President. It is, I know there's been a great deal of talk about the Juvenile Justice Center and money. As you know, because I think I've reported it here, we have made the largest offer to the youth care workers that has ever been made in the history of the county. That's 2 steps, 4.5%, 4.5%. And just for the newer members, when you move up that step, that 4.5% goes on top of the new step. It's not like a cost of living adjustment that is ephemeral. This is compounding. It's the miracle of compounding interest. And then that third year is 2.5. That's a lot of money. And that's a lot of money to our taxpayers living on fixed incomes who write their real estate property tax checks to our general fund. I mean, there are widows all over this county trying to stay in their homes because of their property taxes. And I realize ours is the smallest piece of their property tax burden, but it is a piece of it. And so we need to be cognizant of that, and I have been, but I also know that I have the responsibility to balance those interests, to balance the interest of fairly paying the youth care workers. I understand it, and that's why we made this offer. So all of this talk that we've been doing in public about the pay of unionized workers, whether it's potential unfair labor or not, is sort of beside the point for the purposes of my conversation now, because I'm not sure it would be. Because if you're the beneficiary of all the talk that's going on in the public, I'm not sure that's unfair labor practice. What I do think it does is it materially disadvantages the taxpayer, who I'm the representative of, in the negotiations. In other words, all that talk costs the taxpayers more money. And it doesn't mean the record offer we made isn't fair. And I do think that's part of the point. I do think part of the point all this talk is going on is to potentially compromise the negotiating presence, posture of the taxpayer in the representative of the administration. But, you know, I have a lot of respect for Judge Daly. And I don't know him very well, but he has an excellent reputation. And when he came here and talked about the starting salary, we thought a lot about that. We thought a lot about that. And we enhanced the already record offer. And we took that starting salary, which was somewhere in 16 and change range, and we did this. And let me just read it so I have it accurately. Accordingly, consistent with the request of a court administration to address the starting salary, the county is willing to move all individuals working at the Youth Development Center to a base salary of $19.63 per hour in 2023. If an individual is making over $19.63 per hour, their wage will not be adjusted. The starting wage will be reset at $18.78 an hour. This is an extraordinary investment, inasmuch as the county will also honor its prior commitment to provide its current pattern, which is year 1, a step equal to 4.5%, or cash if you're at the top step. Year 2, step equal to 4.5% or cash at the top step. And year 3, 2.5% COLA with, again, no change in health care for another 3 years. So that means you get to keep all the money in your pocket. And then we realized that for the people at the top of the step, that may be problematic. So then we added 3 steps back in that were higher than at the back end of the salary scale. That was rejected. So that offer was rejected. So this is the last time I'm going to talk about this in public. Now, you can continue to talk about it with whomever wants to come forward and talk about it. That's your right. And we will not discuss our position anymore in public, and we will not materially affect the negotiating position of the taxpayer any further in public, irrespective of what anyone else does. And again, I'm not telling anyone not to talk about it. Talk about it all you want. We have made the best possible offer that can be made while also protecting the taxpayer. Anything else? I'm good.
Thank you.
So I'm clear, that was an offer made to, who rejected that offer?
The youth care workers.
The union? that-
The youth, I don't want to characterize their position. That wouldn't be fair. That would not be fair.
Okay.
But it was, I can tell you it was rejected.
Okay.
I can't, I don't think it's fair to, I don't think it's fair to say why.
Keep your mic on.
Can't say why.
I'm going to tread lightly, knowing that the union is involved and it's a very touchy subject. But as far as protecting the taxpayer, I don't think the taxpayer cares. Well, I shouldn't say they don't care. The wage that the youth care workers are getting is not as big of a concern as what the taxpayer is paying the county, and that takes in obviously a lot of things. And as you have a man sitting here representing an idea to implement, you know, basically the Department of Health for Northampton County workers, I have a hard time believing that spending a lot of money in a completely new venture where we would obviously have to worry about staffing, that is a better, you know, sense of spending than taking money that we might have for that venture and appropriately paying our workers. Because I'm looking at a home ownership program information for low-income workers, and if I take what our starting wages are for workers in our county, they'd be qualifying on the lower end of what low-income people would qualify for these houses. So, yes, it's an incredibly uncharacteristic increase, but it's still $1,860 for a person with a college degree. I don't think their complaints are completely unwarranted.
I didn't say they were. I didn't say their complaints were. A couple points there. One, it's not just the base rate. And remember, we're moving this rate to where Judge Daly said he thought they needed to be. So we were being responsive to that. I don't know what more we can do. The fact of the matter is the Partnership Healthcare Center is an idea that will help save us money. So if our actuaries come to us in the middle of next year and say, you've got this 24% increase, your bill's $7.7 million, the Partnership Health Center has an opportunity to cut that in half and 3.5%. If we don't take that, we're going to miss the opportunity to potentially cut that $7.7 million payment into the trust fund to $3.5 million. Additionally, I can guarantee you we will have to raise the contribution that the employees make to the healthcare plan if we don't do the Partnership Health Center. So they're at, I think, 3, 4, 5 now. They'll probably have to go to 4, 5, 6, and we haven't had to raise their contribution since 2014. It's going to be a real shock to the system. So, you know, I'm willing to take the risk, and I'm not a high wire rope act. You know, I took my time getting to the conclusion that this was a program I could bring to you that you could be comfortable with supporting.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
And this is just in general, I know the solicitor's looking, I've been around the block a few times, so I'm not speaking to any unions or any contracts, just in general. The executive and I actually have had conversations in the past about employees, about wages. I would just say that I would agree, the idea of an enhanced starting wage, I think is a step in the right direction that you've offered in this particular case. I think when I look at the pay scales, and there are exceptions, but overall, it seems to me in today's day and age, and you know, I go out, Mr. Cusick has said, well, Mr. Ackman always talks about the benefits, but I always add on that I may be pretty old, that meant a lot, but now young people, they're looking at cash in hand. I think starting salaries, if we look at our step system, that's where a problem is. And I'm not the unions, that's up to them what they want to do. But I do think that your move in this area, or your suggestion, is a warranted suggestion. Whether it's enough, I'm not going to get into whether it is, But I do think, you know, with our step system, I think some of those initial steps in certain classifications, it's tough. It's tough for you. It's tough for everybody to attract some of the new people out there. Saw a CNN poll where people, I'm not going to get into news sources anymore. I've said things to people, said, this is my source, and they said, that's a terrible source. So anyway, this is my source, though. Right now, apparently, there's approximately 2 jobs, I can't speak to the quality of it, for every 1 person out there who's employable. So, I mean, we, like business, we're in a, I don't know if government was ever in this tough a competition for employees. This is just a general, I think your administration, this council is facing something that, in my recollection, I don't know if it was that, there's always been issues, children, youth, and families, right? God bless us and everybody. Until the state steps in, I think that'll always be a problem. But I think we're in a new arena. We have a new paradigm now, and I think it's just going to be difficult. We're in direct competition with a lot of other places and entities now, and it's not a knock on anybody. It's not a this or that. It's just my observations based on experience of being a student of life around me.
Well, I think there's 2 things to say about that. We have been trying for years. So I heard Mr. Myers last night talking about the introductory steps, and so those are union jobs he was talking about, that 1440, whatever number. We've been trying to raise that first step in our negotiations forever. It's always just the cost on the back end.
Yeah.
So that's what makes this this youth care, the latest iteration of the youth care offer, which has been rejected, so difficult for me, because we still kept the 2 steps and the 2.5 in, as well as paying all that extra money to move that first step, because you've negotiated these contracts. You would know exactly the problem getting that first step up.
And I know who usually sits there for the unions. It's more experienced workers with seniority. And you're right. I will just say in general, the first thing sometimes people will say is, oh, what about me? And the me is sometimes at the end. And those very beginning steps that you're talking about may not necessarily be fought for as hard. Just a general perception on my part, not speaking to any specific union or contract.
So, and I would say, and I know I've said this before, and it isn't spin because it's true, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can bring HR in and ask them. The places where we're having difficulty hiring are the places that were most affected by the pandemic. When the people who have to work in close environments, like the detention center, like at Graysdale, like our children and youth workers who have to go into people's homes to do the visits. And this was, COVID was a huge problem for those workers doing those close interaction type of jobs. And we're not having a problem hiring in just about anywhere else. We're not. And if you would like some specific explanations about some specific vacancies you've heard about, we can have a executive section, and I can sort of explain to you what's going on in certain of those places. But we're not having any trouble getting applicants for those jobs. We can fill the jobs in the county. It's essentially right, Mary Lou, isn't it? Yep. Thanks. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Moving into old business, we have a public hearing of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the County Council of Northampton County authorizing the purchase of 3506 Kesslerville Road and 3408 Kesslerville Road, Forks Township, Pennsylvania, from Thomas Dietzler and Antoinette Dietzler. Mr. Myers and Ms. Zirinsky introduced this ordinance at the October 20th, 2022 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this matter? Is there any discussion from council regarding this matter? Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have sorry, is there any other old business to discuss? Skip the one. Now we'll move into new business. Introduction of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending the 2022 Northampton County Budget, Solicitor, Department of Community and Economic Development, Gaming and Hotel Tax, Community Development Grant, Pass-Through Grant, Department of Administration, Elections, Hazmat Act 165, Department of Fiscal Affairs Balancing the Budget, Coroner, Department of Public Works, P3 Bridges, Act 13, Department of Human Services, Veteran Affairs, Development Fund, Grants, Children, Youth, and Families, Area Agency on Aging, Health Choices, Mental Health, Developmental Programs, Early Intervention, Drug and Alcohol, Opioid Settlement. I need someone to sponsor this.
I'll sponsor.
Mr. Myers, Ms. Zirinsky. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be November 17th, 2022. Next, we have the consideration of the 2023 court cost increases resolution. Mr. Myers, would you please introduce?
Now therefore, it be resolved that an other fee schedule inconsistent hereby repeal insofar as to affect the attached fee schedule. And it's listed behind what they're doing with the courts.
Oh, that was the, you're changing the fees.
But do you want me to read the whole thing?
No, just the now, well, now therefore. And then, but it's pursuant to the court order that was set down from the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to discuss? Hearing none, are there any council committee reports? Mr. Heckman.
We just had a Human Services Committee report. Thought it was very informative, and for those of you who missed it, look forward to your minutes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We had an, excuse me, we had an Economic Development Committee meeting this afternoon at 3:30. We went over our housing. The county has a limited amount of influence on affordable housing, but we have done a lot in this county. We've been very proactive. The administration laid out all the different programs to try to offset some of these housing issues in our community. So though we can't control the big picture, we certainly are making efforts to control what we can in our county, and I appreciate what the administration and Ms. Smith has been doing with the housing. Thank you. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports? Any council liaison reports?
There's a farmland preservation meeting this week. I just want to report that we're at 18,774.16 acres preserved on 243 farms. And big thanks to Ryan Shaw and Maria Bensoni for all the work that they do down there.
Discover Lehigh Valley held their annual board meeting this week, and I attended. Business is booming in the valley. The average daily rate for rooms is up almost $25 a room, and the occupancy rate has increased at least by from 64 to 73. By the end of 2023, they expect to have 7,000 rooms available in the valley. They're targeting not just tourism, but they're also looking to increase business meetings and convention-type vendors as well. And hopefully there will be the Lehigh Valley Marathon coming back in October of '23. And there'll be an announcement about that when they're ready. I'm looking at team, did I miss anything? It's all right here. If anybody wants it, I'll give you this nice little, and then you could print out all 12 pages for yourself.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, and I don't know that I can answer.
Well, no, I don't know if they brought this up. I know it's been reported, the Sands, in their hotel expansion, they're looking to actually go beyond our standard conference rooms, which we seem to have 1 million of them in the Lehigh Valley, and actually want to expand to look at, you mentioned conventions, to look at a larger space to draw in. And I don't know if that was brought up or not.
Yes, it was. A little bit. It was mentioned, but it's not,
Okay.
they're hopeful that
Yeah.
it will. And I have to say, as somebody who looked to have a convention here and I was looking at bids, it was very difficult. And part of it was timing of when we were looking to come in, but there aren't a lot of spaces that could fit that size or are willing to give up that many beds to allow people to come in. I mean, I would think if you're doing it on a Tuesday to a Thursday, maybe, but if you're trying to tag on a weekend, it's very difficult. So I see it as a needed service.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that I attended the 2022 annual meeting for the Community Action of the Lehigh Valley, and they're a nonprofit organization that's geared towards improving the lives and building our community through actions like housing and addressing homelessness or those without shelter and food insecurity. And the theme was collaboration. And it was just amazing to see how many community partners there are and how many entities are really trying to battle these just systemic poverty in the Lehigh Valley. And I really thought it was a very moving presentation that so many people gave. I know that Habitat for Humanity was already here, and they gave a presentation there as well, and the food banks as well, Sixth Street Shelter. It really is amazing to see how much goes into it, but I want to say that what would be really great is that if that need didn't exist, if that need, we didn't need all those people in that room trying to battle poverty and homelessness, and if we had a better distribution, an equitable distribution of what people need to battle the systemic barriers that create those conditions. And yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Council Clerk's report?
Our next and last budget hearing is next Wednesday, the 9th, for capital projects and improvements in Public Works. And also on the 18th is when our budget amendments are due to me for processing.
Do you want to say anything about the chairs?
Huh?
Do we need to talk about the chairs that are sitting in the hallway? Okay. Okay. Mr. Solicitor?
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn? Mr. Giovanni, second. Who was that? Mr. Brown, all in favor? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have any, I don't think we're going to have this meeting.